It's time for your Low Country real estate market update. It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Brian is one of the top 1% real estate agents in Charleston. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. Now, broadcasting from the WTMA studios, here's your host, Brian Beatty.
Good morning, Charleston. You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Thanks for joining me this morning. Busy weekend here in Charleston with the Cooper River Bridge Run. And thank you so much for being on this program. This program is designed to help you become more informed about real estate. This is a housing show. We talk about national, regional, local real estate news. I, of course, apply that to us here in the Low Country, and I share my experiences as somebody that's been selling real estate for the past 12 years. We've done about 1,000 transactions in the Charleston market, about $500 million worth of sales volume. And I share those experiences with you so that you can become a more informed consumer. You better understand the process of buying, selling, investing in real estate. You know the right questions to ask. You know how to prepare yourself for the road ahead, whether it be buying, selling, or investing. And so thanks for joining this program. I have a lot to talk about this weekend. A big surprise for those of you that listen to the show Saturdays at 9 and Sundays at 10. But I was on a panel this past week, and the panel was comprised of really three of the other top agents in our market, and we were talking to the top 20% of agents in our market about where we think the market's headed right now. Do we anticipate there being a shift, and if so, what are we doing in our own businesses to account for that? And so I want to talk about that for maybe the first segment or two, and then I really want to focus on sellers this show because these next 6 weeks are critical. If you want to get your home on the market, get it marketed, get people through the door, accept an offer, and then take the kind of mandatory 30 to 60 days to close. There are some exceptions to that, but if school starts on August 20th in Charleston County, then we've kind of got to get a move on some things. So I want to talk about how to prepare your home for sale. I want to talk about how to interview a real estate agent. And I'm going to help you do that by telling you what I would look for if I were hiring a real estate agent. If I had a property that I owned in, say, Atlanta, what are the questions I would ask, and what are the things that I would expect out of that real estate agent? So that's coming up a little later on in the program. Now, if you want to reach out to me and you want to talk to my team and I about representing you in the purchase or the sale of a property, you can give me a call. My cell phone number is 843-345-1273. Again, that's 345-1273. Or you can go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. A lot of really good information on there. We continue to kind of pack it with guides and information on buying, selling real estate. Of course, you can search the MLS, learn about myself and my team, see what we've sold, see how we market our properties, and you can listen to this radio show. I've got all the radio shows on there. So listingsincharleston.com. Now, let me tell you a little bit about this panel that I was on a few days ago. We're sitting on stage, we're talking to the top 20% of agents in our market right now, and they're asking, several questions of us about what we're doing in our business and how we're generating business for ourselves. But really more importantly, what are we doing with this perceived shift that everyone seems to be talking about now? And so I think in order to best describe where I think our market is headed, let's go back. A few months ago, I gave you my housing outlook for 2018. This was back in late December. And so I kind of want to touch on a few of those points really quickly because now we're through the first quarter of the year. And let's see how we're stacking up. I anticipated that prices were going to be up roughly 3 to 4%. And if you remember last year, prices were actually higher than where we all anticipated they would be. They ended up being almost 7% up nationally. And all the housing experts were saying 3 to 4%. So we got a little surprised there. In terms of closings, I was under the impression that we would be up by the end of this year by, say, maybe 1 to 2%. I didn't see us doing an extremely large number of transactions above what we did last year, which was close to 25,000 transactions, by the way. It was a lot of deals in 2017 in Charleston. But really what we want to focus on, which is the hot topic as it relates to market dynamics, is inventory. And I think that, several months ago, I said that it's going to get a little worse before it gets better. Inventory is going to continue to go down before it starts to trend upward. And I think that there are plenty of areas in Charleston that are already starting to see some signs of stabilization. I don't necessarily want to say, it's not a down market, and I want you guys to really understand that. What I'm telling you is that the rate by which properties are appreciating is a function of the amount of inventory and, of course, the demand for that type of property. And we're actually going to talk after this particular segment. We're going to take a break, and we're going to talk about, what defines a market shift? What are those factors that we're looking for, and what internal and external factors or factors of supply and demand impact home prices? So we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But as far as inventory is concerned, look, at the end of February, we had 4,900 homes available for sale in the Charleston Tri-County area. February 2017, we had 5,500. So not only did we have 600 homes less to choose from, year to date, we have put 150 more properties under contract. So yes, there are some signs of a shift. And by shift, I mean that things are just returning to normalcy in some areas. But let's talk about interest rates for just a second. I mean, interest rates, we all kind of had this assumption that interest rates are going to rise, which they have. A gold-plated borrower right now with excellent credit and great income and very little debt and a big down payment, they're looking at somewhere around a 4.5% interest rate. And when the Fed met back in December, a majority of them expected there to be 3 or more rate increases this year. And we've already seen it to an extent. But in 2019, almost all of them expected rates to rise again, which clearly suggests two things. Number one, that the upward pressure on interest rates is going to continue. It's likely to continue. And number two is that the Fed feels pretty good about the economy, right? I mean, we've had several years at this point of false starts on rate increases, but the stage seems to be set for this to happen for real this time, and we're already starting to see it. And with, signs of rising inflation and continued slow but steady economic growth and a political slant that are all aligned kind of in the same direction, we can expect things to be, in my opinion, slow but steady. But look, I'm not an economist, all right? I'm putting together information that I absorb because I use it in my everyday life. I study the housing market. Of course, I tell you guys what I think, and I apply it when I represent my clients. We've done that 1,000 times here in this market. But, expect slow but steady rate increases through 2018 with the very real possibility, by the way, of it being a little bit more than what we might have expected. Now, looking at new construction, kind of switching gears for a second, new construction, I think they're going to turn their attention to the first-time homebuyer market. There's plenty of inventory and absorption of that inventory in kind of the middle of the road price bracket. But I think they're going to start targeting first-time homebuyers more. Millennials want to be homeowners. They don't want to be living at home with their parents. They want to have kids. They're getting better and higher paying jobs. And if you look at the National Association of Realtors study, they have a generational study of home buyers and sellers. Their attention is turning more toward traditional neighborhoods versus kind of like that condo or that really small home in the cool area of town. They're just becoming more mindful of the future as their family grows and as their needs change. Last thing that I want to talk about really quickly is days on market. I was anticipating that it would remain about the same for the overall Tri-County area, but there are already some pockets that are showing fairly significant increases in days on market. And the challenge in this market is that sellers think, the hype is real and that they all expect to see the same results, no matter where they are, what price range they're in. They're expecting a quick sale, a competitive offer from one or more buyers, and the ability to be picky about the terms of the contract. And this is very simply, in my opinion, a failing of the real estate agent, because we need to help inform you of market expectations. Selling a home that's priced at $300,000 in Mount Pleasant is going to be a heck of a lot different than selling a $1.5 million house in Somerville. Right? Right. We need to just discuss in greater detail expectations, I think, with our clients. That's something that I think that our industry really needs to work on is communication, specific targeted communication and education. I just don't think we're doing as good a job of it because, look, agents are extremely antsy when it comes to getting listings. So look, there were 4 panelists that we were talking to this group to, and I was, of course, one of them. And we all agreed that Charleston was going to remain a hot market for years to come based on some insulating factors that make our specific market unique. Things like Boeing and Volvo and the number one destination in the world for several years. I mean, from several publications over the past decade. I think we've got still like 35 people moving here a day. We've got 11 new births a day locally. We got a lot going on for us. But there will be some incremental changes in this market. Of course that will happen. It always happens. It doesn't matter if you're in a buyer's market, a normal's market, or a seller's market. There's always incremental changes. Now, will we see another 2008 anytime soon? I mean, your guess is as good as mine, but what we have now that we didn't have before the real estate bubble burst in 2008 is accountability and oversight in all aspects of the housing sector. I mean, I'll give you one quick example before we take a break, but I represented a guy, I'm not going to say the location, but it was so long ago, and there's no way he's listening anyway. He doesn't live here anymore. But he owned a property, and he went from saying he made $1 million a year to actually making $30,000 a year so that he could get out of his house and he could do a short sale. And back then, you could do a stated income, stated asset, no documentation loan. I mean, how crazy is that? Thinking back 10 years, how crazy is that of us to have been able to allow that to happen? But it is what it is. We use it as a learning experience. So fast forward to today, and some people still think that banks just don't want to lend money to people, or they're making it unnecessarily difficult to obtain a loan, which is just wildly inaccurate. I mean, I know of several lenders in this market that will not allow themselves to be beaten on an interest rate by their competitors, and they will drastically cut their own profit that they make off of originating a loan just to get the deal done. I have had people tell me that as a selling point to try and get my clients to do business with them, and that's a compelling argument, but I think it's also very telling of that side of our business right now. So you as a consumer should obviously be shopping for the best rate, but you also have to look at the best cost. And then, of course, customer service comes into everything, right? You get what you pay for. Some people are okay with paying slightly more in terms of the service they receive, which is why real estate agents are always going to have varying commissions. Some charge 4, some charge 8. It just depends on what you're looking for. So there was that one example that I wanted to give you of that home that the guy he said that he made $1 million a year. Then we looked at his tax returns and it was like $30,000 a year. Of course, it wasn't going to work out. We don't have those types of issues anymore. Those have been eradicated. There's a lot of oversight now. There's a lot of accountability now. You can't just go and choose your own appraiser anymore. Your appraiser is chosen from a pool of approved appraisers by that particular bank. So there are all these safeguards in place. So are we going to see a 2008 anytime soon? No. Are we going to see a massive change in a very short amount of time that creates a buyer's market or even a normal market? Not this year, probably not next year, being honest. But there are some telltale signs. And so what do we look for as evidence that the market is shifting? Well, more on that when we return. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. And again, if you want to reach out to my team, talk with us about working with you to help you buy or sell a home, we'd love to earn your business. My number is 843-345-1273. Again, that's 345-1273. Or you can go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Hear the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show every Saturday morning at 9 and each Sunday morning at 10 on 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. 1250 WTMA. You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
Welcome back, Charleston. Thanks again for tuning in to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. Pleasure to be on the program, talking with you guys about real estate, a serious passion of mine. Been doing the show for over 5 years now, and always appreciate those of you that tune in and listen and provide me with some confidence by sending me little messages here and there, or of course calling me to say, hey, we'd like to work with you. Just an honor to be here. Thank you so much for that opportunity to Cumulus and WTMA. Very therapeutic for me to be on this program. As some of you may be able to tell, especially those of you that listen to me on a consistent basis, I hope that it shines through that I'm just a genuine person that wants to help educate you in real estate, in housing. I want you guys to be an informed consumer. I want the public to understand how real estate works, because if we can increase our knowledge in real estate, I think it helps everybody. Now, of course, the agents within the industry, that's a separate topic. There's only so much we can do through this program. And there's a heck of a lot of them now than there were, more so than there were several years ago. I can tell you that much. In fact, a little side note, I was looking at some stats as I was on this, panel of top agents talking to other top agents, and I just was helping people understand inventory and kind of where we were several years ago and where we are now. And if you look back literally a decade ago, we had 12,000 properties available for sale. We have 5,000 now, and we have thousands more agents. So, of course, there are people out there that are putting their home on the market, and it's sitting because the agent did what they needed to do. They said what they needed to say. They, buffed their price a little bit. They dropped their commission a little bit. They promised more than they really anticipated doing, once they got the agreement signed, just so they could get a listing and hope and pray and cross their fingers that somebody else sells it for them. And that's obviously not your typical real estate agent, but it's happening more and more as this industry continues to, grow here locally with our agent base. And yes, we've taken steps to educate our realtor population, and I guess time will tell as to whether that's going well or not. But I think that once this market does shift, which I was just saying last segment, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, guys. I really don't. I think we still have several years worth of a hot real estate market in front of us. But once it does shift, you'll see those people start to drop off like flies. There are so many people licensed now that just are in it for a few deals a year, maybe for their own personal home. And then if they can find a friend from church or work that wants to buy a place, then great. Once they start really looking at the carrying cost of having a license and staying educated and compliant, I think they're going to drop off. And frankly, it's kind of needed because there's only so many transactions we can do in Charleston. But it's, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And one of my favorite sayings is a smooth sea never made for a skillful mariner. So a lot of people are able to kind of stick their hand out right now, get a deal and, make some money, and it works for them. Other people like me that have made a career out of this, that have seen the bottom of the market, fought my way through it. Now we're at the top of the market, both in terms of market dynamics and then our production. I like bringing that experience to you because, again, the point of this program is to kind of separate the fluff and the buzz that you get from social media or from other people that, when you ask them the question of, hey, how's the real estate market? They're like, oh my gosh, it's on fire. It's fantastic. Never been better. You should buy something. You should sell something. You should do it now. Obviously, as you can tell, I want to be a little more specific with you about what a good market looks like, what's right for you. So those are questions that you need to ask and get answers to. But let me talk about, what evidence do we look for that the market is shifting? Because we are seeing this come up now. It's at least among real estate agents that, hey, the market's shifting. Hey, the market's shifting. What are we doing to prepare for it? Let's get our, affairs in order. And, I've been through this. I know what to do. I know what to look for. But let me help you understand what I understand on a broad scale as it relates to market shifts. And they can, in my opinion, best be analyzed by looking at the factors that influence supply and demand, which all have an overall impact on home prices. You could also look at it this way. Markets shift incrementally because of trends within the specific market you're analyzing, which would be like internal factors. Like there are hardly any homes available in this price range. And let's say that there are just, Mount Pleasant, the entry-level price range just continues to creep up. And if a first-time home buyer wants to get into Mount Pleasant, but they can't afford it, they're going to have to look elsewhere. Or maybe they just wait and save more money, and then they get into the market. So you've got all these little factors that are created within the market itself. And then you have the macroeconomic indicators, all the external indicators. So let's break this down. Let's look at the supply and the demand. So on the supply side, the things that would be taken into consideration as evidence for a shifting market would be the number of people, obviously, that want to buy and sell, and the number of new housing starts, new construction. And of course, supply impacts home prices, and of course, is one half of what we look at to measure the health and the balance of a real estate market. The other side is the demand side, interest rates, economic growth, number of households, household formation trends, availability of mortgages that we were just talking about, affordability of housing, speculative demand, which was a huge problem, which is one of the reasons why the bubble burst, consumer confidence. And then you've got things like geographic factors. And then you've also got economic growth, right? I did talk about that, but so let's just focus on economic growth for a second while I'm mentioning it. If the demand for housing is dependent upon income, right? With higher economic growth and rising incomes, people are able to spend more money on houses, which will increase demand and push up prices. In fact, demand for housing is often noted to be income elastic. Rising incomes leading to a bigger percentage of income being spent on houses, right? Similarly, in a recession, falling incomes will mean people can't afford to buy, and those who lose their job may fall behind on their mortgage payments, and they end up getting their home repossessed. They short sale, they get foreclosed on, so on and so forth. And if you look at, remember when unemployment was, well above 10%, related to economic growth, of course, is unemployment. And when it's rising, fewer people are able to afford a house. But even the fear of unemployment can discourage people from entering into the property market, which has, it kind of ties in with consumer confidence. Confidence is important for determining whether people want to take the risk of taking out a mortgage or not. In particular, expectations toward the housing market is important. If people fear house prices could fall, people are going to defer buying. We saw it all the time when the market was in the tank. We're not there yet. We're not even close to it. But obviously, that's one way to gauge a shifting market is just consumer confidence. And that was a big that was a big ticket item. That was a buzzword several years ago. You heard that all the time. You don't hear that so much anymore because it's normalized. There is confidence in the real estate market, overwhelming confidence in the real estate market. And if you look at interest rates, interest rates affect obviously the cost of monthly mortgage payments. And a period of high interest rates is going to increase the cost of mortgage payments, and it's going to cause lower demand for buying a house. And high interest rates make renting relatively more attractive compared to buying, and they have a bigger effective homeownership if the homeownership is tied to an adjustable rate mortgage, especially if they purchase something speculatively, right? They're trying to time the market. They're trying to take advantage of this perceived exponential appreciation over time. And that's one of the reasons why, land, as an example, it's now making a comeback after being in the tank for years. On my team, obviously, in addition to selling, 170-something homes last year, we're selling a lot of land now because prices are back to where they need to be in order for sellers to make sense out of selling them. Well, of course, there's the other side of it the other side of the equation with land where all the properties that got foreclosed on and were purchased for cheap, those owners now have equity and they're timing the market right. They bought low, they're going to sell high, and they're now making a pretty penny on the sale because prices have shot back up. But I think maybe one of the things that we oftentimes do not take into consideration because we're so focused as just a population of people on social media and national, regional news. Local news is very, very important, and real estate specifically, because real estate is local. And what has to be taken into consideration when we look at things like market shifts is our geographical factors. Many housing markets are highly geographical. For example, national house prices might be falling, but some areas, Charleston, as an example, might still see rising home prices. And if you look at the trends within Charleston, like I've studied them over the past 12 years, you'd know that some areas of Charleston were hit much harder by the market crash of 2008, and some areas of the market recovered much quicker than others, starting, say 5 years or so ago. So we've got all these insulating factors that protect us to an extent here in Charleston from the overall market shift. However, we are still susceptible to those external forces because people are moving here, right? And they are subject to whatever their housing market is in wherever it is they live. So yes, it does have an impact on us, but people are still moving here regardless. We still have several things going for us here in Charleston that don't necessarily apply to the national real estate trend, which is why when you're talking to a real estate agent about the market and you're interviewing them to help you purchase a home or sell a home or invest in real estate, especially investing in real estate, because now you're gambling with your own money, right? You're not just finding a place to live for yourself or your family. Now you're taking your money and trying to make more with it through real estate, which is something I've done successfully, and it's something that my family built their wealth on. But you have to be really careful with who you get in bed with as it relates to representing you for something speculative like an investment, because there are areas of this market that might seem pretty good on the surface, but you get into it and you start selling some real estate in it and you start saying to yourself, wow, this is just not moving as quickly as it should be. This home is priced right. I know it's priced right. And it's just sitting. And again, it's an expectations dialogue that we should be having with our clients wherein, hey, if this is the trend and days on market is creeping up, that's something we need to take into account. If inventory is creeping up and we now have 8 months worth of inventory in your particular price range and area, guess what? We're not a seller's market anymore. We're now a normal market. We need to behave like we're in a normal market. We have to have reasonable expectations about what that type of market looks like and how buyers behave within it. So there are all these little factors that influence the housing market, but to answer the question bluntly, is the market shifting? There are some signs, but it has not shifted. And I don't believe it will shift, at least in Charleston, for some time to come. I think we have a few years left of it being a hot market, and I think it's going to be in favor of sellers for quite a while longer in most areas. That's the caveat. There are some areas where it's turning into a buyer's market. If you want to know where those areas are, let me know. 843-345-1273. That's my cell, 345-1273. You can also go to listingsincharleston.com. If you're thinking about buying, selling, or investing in real estate, we'd love to work with you, or at least have a discussion with you, help you, take away some things to think about. But interview us, interview the agent that you're going to hire. We're going to talk about that here in just a minute. How do you interview a real estate agent if you're going to sell your home, knowing that right now, beginning of April is a critical time to have your home on the market. If you want to sell and you want to have that buyer get in before school starts next year. That's not the only reason why people move in the spring and summer, okay? Don't get me wrong, but it's a big part of it. So we need to be positioned correctly, and a lot of it has to do with timing and preparation. We're going to talk about that. So stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
More stimulating talk on real estate matters with Brian Beatty next on 1250 WTMA.
1250 WTMA.
Now, the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues on Charleston's Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, Charleston, as the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. I forgot to mention this in the first half of the program, but we now have this on a podcast. So if you go to iTunes and you go to the podcast section and do a search for the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show, you'll find all previously recorded versions of this show on iTunes. You can also go to listingsincharleston.com and click on the RSS feed, and then that will subscribe you to this show so that as soon as it's posted and you're not able to get to your car or listen to it online, you can always just listen to it on your podcast. So listingsincharleston.com, or of course search us on iTunes, the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. I want to continue my discussion and really kind of switch gears here a little bit to talk specifically to sellers, because timing is crucial when you're selling a property in the spring and summer months. And the next 6 weeks specifically are just critical if you want to sell your house before school starts in the fall. And school starts, at least in Charleston County, on August 20th this year. And if you calculate the average days on market-wide, it's 64 days to sell in Charleston County. It's 54 days to sell in Dorchester County, and it's 49 days to sell in Berkeley County. And now remember, those are averages. A $100,000 home is going to sell a lot quicker than a $2 million home, okay? But let's just call it 2 months. If the market is averaging about 2 months to sell, of course, with several areas and price ranges being lower, obviously some being higher, and it taking you about 45 days or so to close once the contract is signed, then the pressure's kind of on for you to get your house on the market, sell it and find something else to buy, assuming you're staying here locally. I guess it doesn't really matter if you're staying here locally or moving out of the area. You still have to fit in finding a new place into that equation. So if you're going to hire someone to help you sell your house, you've got to get it right the first time. And by that, I mean, you have to hire the agent that is actually going to get your home sold. And unfortunately, in this market, because we have less listings available and more agents fighting for less business, we're seeing a lot of agents that are overpricing properties, trying to secure the listing, which almost always results in a price reduction or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. And at some point, their days on market becomes more than the average for the area. And it means you just sell your home for less than you could have had you priced it correctly out of the gate. And it doesn't matter if you're in a buyer's market or a normal market or a seller's market. All buyers want to feel like they got a deal, right? In this market, if you price your home correctly, the way that you make those buyers feel like, hey, they got a deal is by them getting the house. The house is the deal, not the 10% off of your asking price that they're going to offer you because you're overpriced and you've been on the market for several months in an otherwise hot, fast-paced market. Does that make sense? I mean, last year, just to give you an example, last year we had basically 9,000 homes expire or withdraw from the market, meaning that for whatever reason, about 9,000 homes did not sell. All right, we had about 24,000 closings last year. That means nearly 40% of all the inventory didn't sell their first time on the market, which is usually for 6 months to a year. So if you're going to interview a real estate agent, I did a show about a half a year ago that talked about what I would look for in an agent if, as an example, I owned a home in Atlanta and I needed to sell it and I needed to use an agent. I'm not going to sell it myself. I don't know that market. I'm not going to do myself a disservice by selling a property in an area that I don't fully understand. So if I'm going to interview an agent, here's what I would look for. And maybe this can help you. And I'm happy to send you this list for anybody that is listening, or I do have some questions that I provide sellers that inquire about selling their home with my team. We send them a packet and say, hey, here's some things that you should prepare yourself to ask us or any other agent that you intend on interviewing. But the first thing that I would look for, because I get along very well with these types of people, is somebody that's just straightforward, honest, and trustworthy. Somebody with integrity. I need to be able to trust that person, to have my best interests in mind when they represent me and talk about my house to the general public. And this is why, I want you to think about this for a second as a seller. I understand the irony in this upcoming statement because I'm a real estate agent. However, when agents come to your house and they start talking about working with you and they have this moment of self-doubt, or they realize that maybe there's somebody else that could come along and also interview for this listing, and I know their marketing is going to be better than mine because honestly, I don't do that much. So I'm just going to cut my commission. It doesn't matter if the seller asked me to do it or not. I'm just going to cut my commission. And that then becomes their, unique selling proposition is, hey, I'll just do it for less. Unfortunately, for a lot of agents, cutting their commission doesn't necessarily help you because they haven't added anything to the back end. They haven't added anything to the process of helping you sell your home. There is no extra exposure from those savings. There is no reinvestment into more marketing for you, the seller. If you think about it this way, if the standard commission is 6%, and look, agents charge anywhere from 4 to 8. I've seen agents charge 9 before, 10 on land. But if an agent's going to sell a property for 5% commission versus 6% commission, that means that they need to sell 15% more real estate just to sell the amount of homes they would sell and make the amount of money they would make at just the standard 6% interest rate. So when agents start cutting their commission and there are less deals out there and there are less listings, then they just don't have the money to reinvest. And I'm not saying that as a way of saying, hey, I'm going to charge you full percent commission and it's going to be 8% and blah, blah, blah. No, I mean, we'll work with people. But my point in saying that is that if somebody's going to just unilaterally cut their commission, I, as a seller, would scratch my head at that, because if they're that anxious to get my business, how anxious are they going to be to get my home sold? Are they going to be one of those agents, of which there are several in this market, that says to the other agent that just showed the home to their buyer, hey, these sellers want to sell. I know they're listed at $695, but we've been talking about a price reduction. So just bring me something and I'll make it happen. Let's make some money. I can't stand hearing those kinds of conversations, but you know what? They happen. I do not do that. I detest it. I'm better than that. The agents on my team are better than that. We subscribe to, a moral and ethical business run with integrity. We're not here to shortchange our clients to make a quick buck. That's not how you grow a business. That's not how you become one of the top agents in this town, by the way. So I need somebody that's very straightforward, honest, and trustworthy with me, somebody that has integrity. The second thing, of course, is somebody that's full-time, full service, with support staff in place so that they can focus on selling my house. If they have a team and it's run properly, even better. Third thing I want is that I need them to be selling houses. I'm not just talking about a few a year. I'm talking about multiple homes a month. They need to have a proven track record of not just selling homes, but selling them for close to the asking price and in a relatively short amount of time. I was looking at this stat yesterday. Our median days on market for the past year and a half is 19 days. We're selling them for 98.5% of our asking price. We price our homes effectively. We know how to market our properties. We do a lot of work before it even goes on the market to make sure we show it in the best light, and it works out. I'm not here to say we've got a crystal ball, but our processes work. And I've got 16 people on my team, and we've worked really hard, and I've spent a heck of a lot of money to make sure that our systems are for your benefit. All right, I'm not trying to be a salesperson here, by the way. I'm just trying to help you guys understand how some different agents maybe operate their business. They have to have an extremely high knowledge of marketing. They have to be a marketing expert, in my opinion, because I wouldn't settle for any less, given what we do for our clients. And I'm not going to toot my own horn, but they have to be a marketing expert. And that means they have to understand how to expose my home. They have to understand how to engage potential clients. And they have to understand how to convert interested people into actual business. And they have to have proven systems that help them do that. They have to be somebody that can effectively price a house based on market trends, based on neighborhood comps. I mean, this is always tough for agents, by the way, that just don't sell a lot of real estate. They just don't have a good enough pulse on the market to know things like, hey, if we price it higher than fair market value, how high can we go before we just scare off potential buyers? Or, hey, if we price it at fair market value, how quickly can we expect to receive an offer? Pricing directly impacts the timing associated with your home. The more aggressive your price, the faster it will sell. And some people say, well, I don't want to give my home away. Well, look, if you price your home at or a % or two below fair market value, the market will eat your house up. Now, if you listed your home for 20% below fair market value, the market's not going to let you sell it for 20% below fair market value. That's going to get bid way up. So the best way to sell your property quickly is to sell it or list it at what you expect to sell it for. The best strategy of negotiation is to not negotiate. All right, so somebody that can be a pricing expert as well. Somebody that's passionate about their job, about helping other people, and that has a good reputation in their community. If you're just joining us, we're talking about what you should expect out of your listing agent if you're going to sell your house. Now, some agents are just difficult to work with, and others have a really good reputation in the community. Some agents just, they just feed off of making things challenging when they don't need to be challenging. I mean, if I was an agent that other people didn't like dealing with, it would just make everybody's job more difficult, and that would potentially have a negative impact on my client. At the end of the day, all of us agents have to get along, and we have to play in the same sandbox, and the bad kids are the ones that usually play alone in their own corner. They just segregate themselves based on their behavior. Last two things, then we're going to take a quick break and come back with one more quick segment where we're talking about things that you should expect out of your listing agent if you're going to sell your house. two quick more things. Somebody that respects my time, respects their own time, runs an efficient business. You know, if I call you and I need to speak with you about something, I expect a call back from you, or at least somebody on your staff very quickly if you're tied up. You know, not by, hey, I'll respond to your call in the next 2 business days. That's ridiculous. Give me a call back. I'm calling you because it's important. And lastly, somebody that knows how to negotiate and play the game. Selling real estate, I always say this, selling real estate's like poker. You don't show the other side your hand, right? It is my firm belief that an experienced agent can both earn and save you money. And it comes in many forms. You know, not spending money unnecessarily on your home before it hits the market, pricing it correctly, understanding the motivation of the buyer and the other side of the table, and knowing when to push and knowing when to give. You know, one of the messages I sent to the agents that, you know, I was a panelist talking to the top 20% of the agents in our market on is, you know, if you have to throw a little bit of money at a problem every once in a while, you should just consider doing it. And I know that sounds crazy to say on air, but you know, some people will just make your life a living hell over $100. And I'm sorry, but my time is worth something, and I'm not going to sacrifice much of it for you to just be incredibly difficult. And I don't enjoy working with those types of people. I don't think anybody does. Those people that are just such sticklers for, you know, certain things or certain rights that they believe they have, that they are willing to screw people in the process. I don't like that. I talked about that last show, actually. So I tell you what, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about prepping your home for the market. If you're going to list in the spring and sell and try and get out of the house before school starts so a new family can move in. So stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. And again, check us out, listingsincharleston.com or 843-345-1273. If you'd like to speak to myself or anybody on my team personally about having us represent you to buy, sell, or invest in real estate. And of course, download this show, available on iTunes podcast, The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Stick around. We will be right back.
Have a real estate question? Ask Brian Beatty. Send him an email, lowcountryhomesales@gmail.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show is on 1250 WTMA.
1250 WTMA.
Expert news and views on the Low Country real estate scene. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, Charleston, to the last few minutes of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. You know, I want to take just a few minutes because I was a little long-winded in my first few segments and talk about, you know, what you need to do to prepare your home to sell. And a lot of sellers have extreme anxiety over the thought of having to clear out and fix up their home, and so much so that it could even prevent them from putting it on the market in the first place. But in most cases, there's no need to panic or to overshoot your goals. And often there's a lot less to do than homeowners think. So before you start spending months and millions, you know, figuratively speaking, of course, upgrading your house or just throwing up your hands and giving up before you even begin, let me walk through your house for you. And I'm going to tell you a few things that we do to help out our sellers. Because there are obviously several parts to this equation of prepping your home for sale. There's staging, decluttering, repairs, deferred maintenance, renovations, interviewing your agent, all kinds of good stuff. But as some of you may know, my team offers a free pre-listing inspection when you hire us to help you sell your house. And there are a bunch of benefits to that, of course, right? We can more accurately price your home. We can develop a budget to make repairs. We can shop the cost associated with making those repairs as opposed to being subject to however much the buyer's contractor thinks it's going to fix, which is always more than how much you think it's going to cost to fix once the contract's already signed. So we offer that. We also offer a free 2-hour staging consultation when you list your home with us. Well, we'll have a professional stager and decorator come through and give you a bunch of suggestions. It's at our cost, and they're going to tell you, what to change, painting your ketchup colored kitchen, what to remove, decluttering, extra furniture, so on and so forth, what to add, and how to highlight the natural and obvious features of your house. And the last thing that I'll say is that if you have a vacant home, we will virtually stage your home for free. There's some awesome technology out there that will allow you to stage a vacant home, and it looks just like furniture. And we use those for photos. So I wish that I had more time to talk with you guys about that. I'll certainly save that for next weekend. But if I can help you with that and you want to take advantage of some of those incentives and sell your home this spring, Give me a call, 843-345-1273. That's 345-1273. Or go to listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys, and enjoy your weekend. Thanks for listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning at 9 and Sunday morning at 10. Contact Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. 843-345-1273.